Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Frenchitivity Podcast. Kent and Michelle French with you. We have a wonderful guest joining us on this edition. Robin DeGracia is joining us. She is the author of Raising World Travelers While Staying Sane. If that doesn't resonate with you, I'd be shocked, because it certainly resonates with us. 15 years of traveling with her family and 2 kids, and we cannot wait to share that interview with her.
We're going to cover some really fun topics. We're going to talk about the financials of travel. We're going to talk a little bit about education and why milestone birthdays make the best trips.
So much to cover. And before we get started, we truly appreciate your support on this podcast. And there are a couple of ways that you can help us out.
Yeah, please do follow along on Apple Podcasts. Just hit that follow plus button. Same thing on Spotify, that little plus sign. It means a lot to us, and it helps us show up so that other people like you can find our podcast.
Raising World Travelers While Staying Sane by Robin DeGracia, the author. She's going to join us right now. We hope you enjoy the podcast, and we hope this conversation inspires you.
Kent, Michelle, and Everly spreading Frenchitivity all over the world. This entire family creating possibilities all over the world. Frenchitivity, Frenchitivity, all over the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Frenchitivity Podcast. Kent and Michelle French back with you, and we have a very special guest joining us on this episode. Robin DeGracia joins us, and she is an author. She has been traveling the world with her family, and she's decided to put pen to paper. The book is called Raising World Travelers While Staying Sane. Doesn't that sound great? Doesn't that sound like something we'd all want?
Well, at first I thought it was just raising world travelers. I'm like, cool.
No, you have to have while staying sane in there. I mean, that's huge. So Robin, thanks so much for spending the time to do this. And we were just chatting a minute ago, and I'm so excited that you showed up on our feed. We're going to give all the social stuff later on and how you can buy the book and how you can find you, but so neat to meet you for the very first time. And I just want to jump right in, if I may, and talk about writing the book and publishing your first book and the nervousness, the anxiety, the pressure, all the stuff, all the emotions surrounding that. What's it been like since it was released on July the 1st?
Oh, it's been a wonderful whirlwind. So this was something that's been in the works for about 2.5 years now. I had a conversation with my career coach, and, I was putting down all the things I wanted to do, and she noticed I had put writing a book fairly low on the list. And she said, why? I said, well, it's hard. And she's like, haven't you been writing a travel blog for like 10 years now? I'm like, yes, but somehow that seems easier. Anyway, she was the one who really kind of pushed me into realizing that this was what I wanted to spend some time on. Got a lot of support from my husband and my family, which I'm really excited about. And then once I published, I've just been overwhelmed at the beautiful response to the book. So many people I haven't talked to in years reaching out to me, telling me I read the book. I, was so blown away by it, loved the stories in it, couldn't put it down. And I knew I wanted this out there. I knew I wanted the storytelling to get back to the storytelling and to get that out. But to get the response I've gotten has been just a really beautiful experience and very validating that it was worth the 2.5 years I put into it.
Congratulations. Yeah,
Thank
a
you.
big accomplishment. And I like so many things that you said there as well. And one thing I'll just sort of highlight and then can ask you some more detailed questions is it sounds like at this stage too, you're also prioritizing yourself. Throughout the book, you take us through a lot of adventures and journeys as a family, which is so beautiful. But I'm also kind of hearing now, you're like, and now what's next for me?
Yep, I've started to realize, as of this year, will have 2 high schoolers, one entering their
Oh,
junior
wow.
year, one entering their freshman year.
That's another book, by the way.
I know. Both are in very competitive, like dual enrollment college, high school programs. And so I'm actually finding a lot more free time. Their schedules are incredibly busy and I got to go on a girls' weekend this past weekend, which I haven't done in a while, just because I didn't have to have
Love
anyone
that.
else's. Yeah, I didn't have to be responsible for anybody else. It was wonderful. I'm going on a first international solo trip. I'm joining a group called Latina Travel Club, and we're going to Oaxaca over Day of the Dead. So it's all women. I'm very excited for it. So yeah, at this time, I'm trying to prioritize what I'm realizing that these kids are going to walk out the door, and at this point, I've done more that I can do than I have, you know, um, parenting, and now it's time for me and my husband to focus on what's next for us.
I love that. And on your Instagram, which I've been kind of scouring here over the last couple of days, has been really a lot of fun to watch, especially with the book release. Getting back to the book though, real quickly, I want you to tell me when you opened this book, because I love the expression, the energy that you had when you opened the book and you got it in the mail for the first time and you're showing it on Instagram. It was so cool. I think we're all in there with you going, my gosh, what would it be like to hold this, book that you poured your heart into?
Third child.
What do you want people when they open a book? What are you hoping that they get out of it?
I'm hoping that there's a little bit of humor and a little bit of lessons in there. Parenting, in my opinion, is, if you don't go into it with a little bit of humor, you're going to be pulled over, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be able to share the things that went wrong, like the things that went right, but the things that went wrong, the baby who cried for 6 hours on the plane, or, when we got kicked out of Amber Fort because the child threw a tantrum. Like,
Yes.
Yes.
It was pretty bad. I wanted to be able to share these things with the world to show that, Instagram's got this lovely, beautiful view of traveling the world, and there are some amazing things to it. We have gotten to do some amazing experiences that I know my children really appreciate, right? But there was a lot of work to get to that point for them to be able to appreciate it. And I wanted to be able to share that they could do that. And the other thing too is I feel like I think it's amazing you guys were able to take a year and travel with your kids. That's something we unfortunately never had the opportunity to do, partly because of where our jobs were, different reasons we just weren't able to do that. But I knew it was really important to me that my kids still get a lot of exposure to travel. So we made it happen. We went to India for 3 weeks over Christmas break, which was only 2. So, um, we took our kids, we had a 17-hour layover in Japan and made it work to show our kids, Tokyo. I took a summer off of my job for us to travel through Europe. Like, we've figured out how to make some of these longer, more interesting trips happen. And I wanted to show that it's possible to do it. You don't have to give up your whole life to do it. There's still ways to incorporate it in, and you can do it small, you can do it large, but there's ways to do it.
So much good stuff that you just added and shared there. And I think like diving into some of those categories will probably be really helpful for anyone listening and thinking, to your point, there's aspirational travel. And we actually were just talking about something about that this week, that it's so cool because social media does inspire us and show us these beautiful places. And it's very inspiring. At the same time, sometimes it looks so beautiful, so polished, so perfect that it becomes paralyzing. And we think, well, I can't do it like that. But like that, what is like that? Like we do it how we do it. You do it how you do it. And our encouragement, and it sounds like yours is the same, is like, you can do this. And it looks different for everyone. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, because you speak about it in the book and you've sort of referenced it now too, like how the work schedule works. And you took some risks as well. You supported your husband during a time that he was trying to start a business. And you have a very good chapter about finances. So would you like to speak a little bit about that? Like when someone's saying, oh, I want to incorporate travel into our lives consistently, I want to take a travel year, whatever it is. Can you maybe talk to that a little bit about the financial side for you and your family?
Sure. I will admit we are in a much better financial situation right now. We're both in the Bay Area. We both have generally very good careers. I'm a consultant. They work for an energy research tank, my husband. So, we do well, but you're right. there was a period when the children were young, we sort of had, I call it like the worst 6 weeks of our lives. We had a period where I was working for a job that I loved, but I wasn't getting the advancement I wanted. Um, my husband was trying to start a new job and consulting on the side to make some money. We had just done a bunch of travel and weddings, and so we had brought our savings down to a very, very small amount. And then without warning, my husband's contract was cut, and we suddenly realized we were down half our family income. Um, and we were scared. We were very, very scared. We had not prepared for that in the way that you should. We've learned the lesson now. Um, but we did, and then other things happened at that point that made us realize like life is too short and we need to move on. And so we did two we did like 2 to 3 things that I think were really, really helpful and lucky at the time. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. We also lucked out in timing. So my husband decided to focus on the startup for about a year and a half, and I knew that meant we were not gonna have a salary. So I had already been kind of talking with other firms, thinking about another job, and when they came back and gave me an offer, I negotiated really hard. They actually told me they hired me because part of their interest was I was such a good negotiator, and I was like,
Oh,
"You didn't understand. I knew
that's
exactly how much
that's
money
good
I
advice
needed."
too. That's great. Yes. If we don't ask, whatever happens, you got to ask.
Know what you need and
Know
go
what
ask
you
for
need
it.
and
Yes.
ask.
Yeah.
Um, and so the second thing we did is we bought a house, which sounds crazy to buy when you literally are down half an income. Um, but they were raising our rent to a ridiculous amount. And I had, because I was leaving my job after more than 5 years, I had retirement money that I was actually able to pull out for a down payment. So we took all of it, made a down payment on a tiny little house, which we're still here, and bought this house on one salary. And that has been huge for us because that one salary means we've both been able to take risks. So they were able to, for a while, try the startup. Then they started working for an energy research tank. I ended up leaving my financial service firm, moving over to consulting, which in and of itself is a risk because, I actually just went 6 months without a contract. So that happens, right? Um, but we're never worried about losing our house, which is really helpful. Um, Now, what we really learned during that time about travel is that travel doesn't always have to be big to be fulfilling. So we did lots of exploring locally. We explored new parks that we went to. I checked out all the free festivals that you could find, right? And we would go spend time there. Um, and then we really figured out points at that time. Now, I'm going to
Uh-huh.
tell you, I am
Mhm.
not the best points strategist. There are wonderful people on the internet who do that. I have figured out how to make it like how much I'm willing to do to make it work for my family.
Yes. Yes.
But that was when we started using all of our expenses on a credit card that had points. And then we would only put on that credit card like how much we could pay off in the month. Um, and then we started getting points. We would use it to like fly my mom because my parents are out on the East Coast. So we use it to fly my mom out if she was able to take care of the kids, or we would use it to fly ourselves to New Jersey for some other event. We would use those points. We ended up being able to use some of those points, I think, to go to stay in a hotel in near Legoland to make that trip cheaper for us. So starting to do that, we were able to kind of like get things to fit in the budget that we needed. And then to be honest, once both of us were working pretty consistently, our budget may have expanded. for
As it
travel.
does, as it does. But I appreciate all those points because you're referencing a lot of like things that can be very relatable to people if they're in
Mhm.
different levels of situations. And so I think really the, takeaway from that is that you have choice, you can make decisions, you take a look at what the circumstance is, you make very conscious choices, and therefore whatever you want can still be part of that budget, whether it's
It
travel or
can.
something else. So I think
Exactly.
it just laid out nice examples of like we have choice points and what you do with those can leverage you into the next spot that you want to be in.
Very cool. Now, one thing though that I've noticed, and I'm only a couple chapters in, full disclosure, into the
Okay.
book. What I love about it though is you are developing characters like it's this story. Like we get to learn about you and your husband, and then your first child's born, and then your second child's born. So we kind of get the backstory of what Robin's all about and your family's all about. So thank you for doing that. And that must have been it's an incredibly raw read too. I mean, you are really putting it out there, and how was there how uncomfortable was that for you to kind of open up and really be that authentic and share so much personal information about you, not only you, but also your childhood as well?
So, I'm a little bit of a heart on my sleeve type of person, to be perfectly honest. Putting it down on paper was actually very much a release. Right. There were a lot of moments where I was typing and crying, right? Like the lady at
Mhm.
Starbucks was looking at me funny as I'm like, crying while I'm typing. But it was a release to get it all down on paper and to get some of those stories down. And I will say I did hire a developmental editor to help me shape it a little bit. And she did a really good job of helping me point out where I needed to build the characters more, provide more information. So that's how I think it
Very cool.
became such a good story. Um, but also it was funny actually because at some point I was so authentic. Occasionally I realized I had to pull back a little bit,
Okay.
because it could be hard, it could be raw. Like I did pull some really raw stories out of there that didn't end up fitting with the book's theme. But it felt like a release actually to get it on paper and then to see it form into a story.
Yeah. And there's one more thing I want to add on that too is
Mhm.
when you talk about your kids and you as a child too, because what we hope our daughter learned from that year that we traveled is that she can do it at an early age. Both of us didn't do it based on our childhood experiences, our family, and the way things were going, and it just never was a thing, right? Why would you
Mhm.
all of a sudden just sell it all or rent out a house and leave your job
Mhm.
and leave for a year, right? Like, what are you thinking? So we are hoping that our now 9-year-old daughter, can take some of that, unpack it over the years, and use that to be more curious, maybe be more exploratory, at an earlier age. So where I'm going with this is you had two young children at the time you started traveling, but I want to talk about your childhood real quickly because this is where it stemmed from.
Yeah.
Like your
Yes. Yeah.
parents kind of established that and put that into your fabric, and you've passed that along to your family. Um, and one thing, I know your dad was in the Navy, but there is a
Mhm.
story that you share about going to Barcelona, I think it is, at 19 years old, and how that changed
Yes.
everything for you. Why
It
why did
did.
that trip change it for you?
Um, I was fairly sheltered. I grew up in a small town. I went to college at Dartmouth, which is also a small town. Anytime I had been to New York, or a big city like Tegucigalpa with my mom, it was holding my parents' hands, walking through the city. Um, Barcelona was the first time where I was really dropped into a big city and told I had to figure it out on my own. So, and I got to, like, not only was I able to thrive, but I was able to explore it on the way I wanted to, right? As opposed to someone else's agenda. Um, and so it was just very freeing to go from this small place, you know, to this big place where I got to make the decisions. I mean, I love my Latina family, don't get me wrong, but they always, Latinas are going to like protect and hold in their kids as long as possible. I do it too. But you know, I was finally given the freedom to explore it on my own, and I was with other kids my age that we were able to explore my own. It was the first time I went to a museum by myself because I wanted to. It was the first time I went out to eat at a random restaurant with friends because I wanted to. It may have been the first time I got drunk. Like, you know,
You were growing up. You were
exactly.
yes, you're world
Um,
schooling yourself almost, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so it was really eye-opening to me. It was the first time I realized I liked cities. I thought I didn't like cities before that. Um, I liked exploring. I liked trying these new things, and I wanted to see more of the world. I mean, my parents did the best they could for me. I really appreciate all they did. And my dad gave me great tales of the time when he was in the Navy. But by the time I really had memories, he was out of the Navy, and we were just traveling up and down the East Coast or to Puerto Rico and Honduras, which is where my family was. Um, and I think we went to Mexico one time. And I think, if my dad and my mom had had they definitely had the immigrant mentality of like, trying to hold on to their money as possible, as close as possible, right? So I think these were big splurges for my parents, and they were, happy that they were able to do it. And I'm so happy that they could do it for me. But um, it was exciting to be able to step out of that even further. And I've been able to now show my parents some of that. Later on in the book, I talk about returning to Barcelona with my mom. Um, During the girls' trip, she had always wanted to come visit me while I was there, and she had never gotten the chance to. And so, it was a really beautiful full circle moment to go back with my mom to Barcelona and show her all these places where I sort of, grew up and into the adult I've become.
Love that. And you
Yeah.
you do have a chapter about multi-generational travel, but also
Mhm.
about the key birthdays and how you integrate travel into milestone birthdays.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned that the book kind of weaves in travel from throughout your children growing up. We'll talk about education in a second because this is not necessarily a tale of how you educate on the road, though we all
Yeah.
believe that that's where a lot of the best education happens. But
Exactly.
what was the thread for your family of like how to choose where to travel, when to travel, the milestone birthday sentiment that you have?
So when they were younger, there was not a lot of choice for them. They were younger. Think when Neil was 5 years old, I remember reading a blog post about a woman who said, like, oh, we let our child pick their 10th birthday. And I said, wow, what an incredible idea. And so I looked at, Sunil and I was like, do you want to pick where you go for your 10th birthday? I think he was like 5 years old. He's like, yeah, I want to go. Right. I'm like, okay, great. I mean, his mind changed multiple times over the years, but he finally, I think when we were in Bali for my 40th, is when they settled on going to Hawaii for their 10th birthday. Because Sunil is a water kid. They like swimming in the ocean, swimming in the pool, swimming in the bathtub. I mean, they just like being in the water. Right? And so what I decided was, okay, we're going to sit down. Now, I let them pick wherever they wanted. Now, I did pick the hotel and plan the flights and the timing, but then we sat down. I said, oh, here's a list of things we could do. Here's websites to research. Let's come up with here's a budget I'm going to give you, and let's come up with how we're going to do this. And so we did it over Starbucks one day. We went to the cafe because they love their occasional little Starbucks runs. And so, it was just me and Zanil, and we sat down on my computer and we looked at things. I remember the very first thing that they picked out was the Kauai backcountry adventure. It was tubing through the irrigation canals. I tell everyone to do that if they go to Kauai. It turned out to be like a core memory for our entire family. Um, But, with my daughter, she knew pretty early on what she wanted for her 10th birthday. She started dance at 3 years old. Um, is I just signed her up for 3 more classes this year. And she wanted to go to Paris where ballet was founded.
Oh, wow. Wow, she went 5-star.
Yeah, yeah, she did. She did.
Wow.
Well, the funny thing is actually, and I tell this all the time, Sunil's trip was more expensive. Hawaii is so
it's funny.
expensive.
I was like,
That's
yeah,
a good
Hawaii.
point. That's a good point. I don't know. It has this,
Paris?
thing about it. You think Paris, we say Paris,
Paris.
like, ooh,
Right.
la la.
No,
That's,
no.
Depends on where you live, I guess, too, right?
I mean, Paris, we got
Yeah.
our flights on points.
that's crazy.
The hotel was really reasonable. And I mean, you get the museum pass. It's really cheap. The most
Not that
expensive
expensive.
thing I think was we went to see Midsummer Night's Dream in the Opera Bastille. So that was the most expensive buying those tickets. And that wasn't even, I played for the San Francisco Ballet here. It wasn't even on par of how expensive.
Once again, a nice reference to like, it just depends where you are and where you live currently, what your baseline is, and what you prioritize to say, this kind of adventure, this kind of a trip is what we'd like to prioritize. And so we're able to have a certain budget for it. And then it allows us to make other choices leading up to that. So the fact that the kids get involved in planning it and they understand what they might want to save for. I mean, I think it goes beyond just birthdays and choosing travel. It has a financial aspect. It has a family core memory aspects. Like, I think just having these travel discussions with your family, it just layers in so many opportunities to bond more and to learn. So, and I love that. We can sit here and be like, well, of course, Paris is less expensive.
We're a big believer in that in our family. I mean, I started with the 10th birthday, they get to pick and plan all the activities. But even when we're going anywhere, like I always ask everyone, I'm like, what is it that you want to do? Like, look it up. Give me, I think we started with a spring break at San Diego. It's like, everyone's got to give me one thing that they really want to do. Right. And I think Sunil picked the USS Midway Museum
Wow.
because their grandpa. And
Good one.
and Isabella picked being in it was like a night lights tour or something like that.
Cool.
So yeah.
And it does
Very on
just
brand
then
for both of them.
allow their curiosity and their part of it. We talk a lot about that, about like the family travel, creating just those bonds, those memories. They're part of it too, rather than just being told and waiting till
Exactly.
Barcelona when they're
But I
20.
think that's a great point, and we did that with Everly too. Or like she was part of the decision making, and
Oh,
that made
absolutely.
that made the decisions that much easier because kind of what you're talking about. It wasn't like, oh, we're going here. No, I don't want to go there. No, it's like, okay, we're gonna go here, but then we're gonna go here for you because you chose this place, and then we're gonna go here for Daddy because he wants to go, whatever it may be. But they were bought in, and they were part of the decision making process. I thought that was so cool. As we transition, this is a slow transition, Robin, into education because I know it's kind of a big thing for all of us. When you've touched on several different experiences your family has gone on. But when you look back when your kids were younger and then they would come back from these trips and talk, what type of experiences resonated most with your children? Was it the city? Was it the campgrounds, the ocean? What type of experience was the one that they were talking about most often?
So that's funny because it really depends both on the age range and like where we went. So when they were younger, it was all about the pool, the beach, the ocean, whatever
Sure, yeah.
water they could enjoy. To the point that I always had to make sure the hotel had a pool. Right. That was
We're laughing because we had to do
We're familiar.
We're familiar with that.
I know,
yes,
right?
yes.
But I noticed that they had memories later on. So, now that they're older and they're teenagers, I'll get them talking about like, oh, I remember the cool playground we had in Barcelona, not Barcelona, Buenos Aires, where, or no, it was in India, but they remembered the playground in India where they had a roller slide and they could bounce all the way down, right? They remember walking around the apartment complex in Mumbai and the lush greens that were there. They love amusement parks. They will always talk about remembering Legoland and Disneyland. But they also, now that they're older, are appreciating the more independent experiences. They talk about liking to get on the metro and trying to figure that out on their own. They like talking about like, when they got older, sometimes they were done for the day walking around Europe, and they were like, "We liked it when you guys would just leave us in the apartment for a couple hours while you guys went out for a beer, and we could just chill and enjoy it here." Um, we spent like a month in Europe maybe 2 years ago. Um, and a lot of their memories, we did a lot of World War II history, maybe a little too much World War II history. There was a moment. um, and while I was hoping they would remember the experiences like walking through Auschwitz or, the Poland Museum, they're talking about making pierogies in the cooking class or, the time mom took us the wrong direction on the train. You know? The view from up at the Prague Castle, like those were the things that they kind of focus on and remember. And so, um, I think that's what's been really interesting. Both of them are really focused on food. I blame and credit my husband for that. He's a big foodie. So anywhere we go, they always want to try the local cuisine. They, we do lots of food tours, and that's always what they're most excited for. We eat like 6 meals a day when we're traveling.
As you should.
Exactly.
I love that. It's perfect. Definitely. Well, and I think it's, you're mentioning all these moments too, that it's like all part of travel, but it's these tiny moments. And it's part of
Yes.
when we're saying, raising world travelers who also then kind of realize it's all these tiny moments throughout our traveling and when we're home and all these moments together that, shine out. And you're like, wait, that's the thing you remember? Like we were in Europe and you're going to talk about the thing, but it's still just part of these little moments that help them be bonded as a family, be bonding as siblings, be bonded, just in this experience where they feel very safe to be curious and just fully themselves. That's something we think travel absolutely represents. So yeah, I get those
I also
moments.
realized that they're learning much more independence. They're not going to go to Barcelona and be afraid of the metro system. My daughter, we just went to New York the last like 2 weeks ago. And my daughter was the one who was figuring out the metro stop and the Google Maps and telling us which direction to go in.
Yes.
Th- they're not afraid to be in new locations, in new places with different people. And that to me is huge. That says I did something right.
Absolutely. We're applauding you.
We are.
If
We're
you're watching on
cheering you.
YouTube, you can tell that
We're
we are. But
cheering
if
you
you're
from
listening,
afar.
we're like,
High
enough
five,
said.
high five, Robin.
Mic drop. That's all we need to say about travel. As Kent mentioned, this is a good kind of entryway into education. So you've actually really demonstrated so many ways that they've become educated and the kind of amazing humans it sounds like they are today. But in the early years, they were quite young when you were first starting to travel. So would you like to talk with us a little bit about what your view on education and taking them out of school or not, homeschool, world school, in the book, what are you hoping people kind of take away with your view on education?
I am really impressed with the people who can home or world school. I knew from a very early point that I was not that person. I don't have that level of patience to do it.
Yeah.
And I joke, I am home and I'm much more available to my children now than I was when they were younger. And I'm quite glad it ended up that way because when they were younger, like they were cute, but it was a lot of work. And now their problems are bigger, but we can discuss it and they're with full-fledged humans. I'm better there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very honest answer. No, I appreciate that. And then I think there's so many people that we all can relate to that, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So I knew from an early point that I was going to put them in public school. But I really wanted to make sure that I also knew that I wasn't going to be the parent who made sure we had perfect attendance. Because I really did value the taking the kids out and doing the travel. I thought that was really important. So I actually picked a charter school. The other thing too was Sunil we noticed from very early on was a very intelligent child, but they had an auditory processing disorder, which would cause them to sometimes like act out behaviorally. And I was very afraid of them going into a big public school and being labeled as a troublemaker. So we went to a smaller charter school where we could get like more individualized learning plans. And they also had this great like independent study program where if you pulled your kids out for more than 3 days, you could apply for independent study. They would make them do a work packet. And then when you came back, it was as if they were there, right? So for the younger years, we did that a lot. I think we did at least a week every year. Um, Unfortunately, kind of halfway through our time at the school, they stopped that program because too many people were abusing it. Um, and so we had to make a decision, like as a family, are we going to stop pulling our kids out? And we decided, no, we'll just take the slap on the wrist, right? Now, I did set expectations with my children. I said, if you're behind in your schoolwork, if you're not doing your homework, if you're not behaving in school, you're not getting taken out for this fun trip, right? That was the key. That was the rule. If we were pulling them out, they had to keep up with their schoolwork. They had to be submitting it. Especially post-COVID, you could do everything through Google Classroom, right? And sure enough, we just took them in December, January timeframe. We decided to take an extra week and do 3 weeks in India because 2 weeks was just too short. And so we
Yeah.
did Christmas in India and we kept them out an extra week. It was really funny because the school every day would send me little text messages saying, your child isn't in school today. And so they were like, please provide a reason why. And so I was sending them
Send a
pictures
picture.
saying, yeah, I was. I was like, sorry, they're 13 hours in the future at the Taj Mahal. You know?
I was like, I'm
And-
hoping you're sending him a photo of where you're at. Sorry,
I
we're
was.
here.
Every day.
Every
And
day,
I
though.
was told when I got back,
Yeah.
like, as I was signing my, like, you were, truant letter, they were like, we loved all the pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so
So-
I know. Yeah.
Like,
I know, right?
I know. So it's been hard. Now, what I would say is that it's getting harder. So, like I said, that I pulled that out for 8th grade and sophomore year of high school because I had a straight A student in high school, I had a straight A student in 8th grade. I wasn't worried that they weren't going to be able to catch up. Both of them did say they found it stressful to be
Yeah.
making up that much work at
Yeah,
this point.
at that point.
And then what's really making it, while I'm incredibly proud of both of my children, both of them are going into dual enrollment programs next year, which means they are doing college classes
Yeah.
and high school classes
Yeah.
with schedules that don't line up. And college classes, you can't, it's a bigger deal if you
Yeah.
miss one, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm incredibly proud and realizing this is changing our whole travel strategy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to pull them out the way I used to. And it's sad. I was really sad. I didn't realize how much I should have appreciated our last spring break because that was our last spring break trip.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to reflect and to allow the readers of your book and our listeners to really think about with everything you just said. If I understand, I believe you started traveling when they were little, but even when they started going into kindergarten, you've kind of been using this strategy, if for lack of a better term in the moment, of let's extend the breaks a little bit. Let's
Every
make
time-
the family occasion such as a wedding or something else, we'll take them out. So is that right that since they've been in kindergarten through now entering into their amazing high school years, you've leaned into the established breaks, made those a little bit longer, and taken them out when you wanted to do something special?
Every year they've missed at least a week of school.
Okay. Yeah. This
So
is
every
this
year-
is great because there's so many ways to do this. And I
Exactly.
feel part of what you're saying too, even with an independent charter and an independent study, and then that changes, and now especially they're getting into something that's more academically strenuous, and so you'll have to make different choices. But you've demonstrated that all along the way, you adjust to what's happening, and I think you're a beautiful example of like you can still travel a lot and make this incredibly meaningful experience working within a regular school schedule.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Like,
I want to
that's
add to
pretty
that
cool.
real quick too, because what I'm hearing as well is, yes, they're missing a week of school a year, but what they're gaining
Oh, sure.
is I just think that's so important
Yeah.
because, well, we
Oh,
say
yeah.
it all the time because we took our daughter out of school for a year.
Yeah.
So
We world school for a year.
So it's like you mentioned, independence, confidence. I mean,
Yes.
so when
Yeah.
they came back, yes, they could catch up. That doesn't even surprise. I don't know your
Yeah.
children, but that doesn't surprise me.
Probably caught up a lot faster than.
Well, how did that?
Yeah.
But socially, and interactive wise, and vocabulary, and all those things. How did travel benefit your children at an early age, and how do you see them when they came back and integrated with their friends, and how did that process take place?
Well, I think I mentioned it earlier, but independence is a big one.
Yeah,
Them
Yeah.
feeling comfortable in uncomfortable situations, right?
yeah,
Being in a place that they're not used to and being able to adjust. That's been really big too.
I like that.
And then just because we're history nerds, a lot of history. I mean, I pulled my kids out one year for a full week of school because we had a wedding near Washington, D.C. And I'm like, I'm not going to a wedding in D.C. and not going to DC. And let me tell you, that actually surprisingly aligned with when my daughter was learning about like the branches of government.
Of course
So
it did,
teacher
yes.
made her take pictures at each of the branches of government and write a
Okay.
report about it. That
So
was
great.
her work. I
So great.
loved it. And they learned so much more about
Yeah.
our country in
Yeah.
DC
Yeah.
than they did their entire year. In fact, my oldest will tell you, I learned more in our Washington, D.C. trip than I learned my entire year of social studies
Wow.
in 5th grade. So,
Experiential learning.
exactly.
Bravo. And yeah, hands up to that. Absolutely.
One thing that struck me at the beginning of your book was a scenario that you painted so eloquently, that you were, I believe, sitting by a pool and you were pregnant, I think, with your first child, and they came up to you and said, "Is this your first?" And you said, "Yes." I will, enjoy it while you can, because once you have kids, you're not going to be able to travel.
Thank goodness for that person.
Made me mad.
But that's,
You're like,
but
I
that is,
will prove you wrong for the
Yes.
rest of my parenthood. Here we go.
But that was a
100%.
standard thought process.
Well, it still
It
is,
was.
and
to
we
a degree, correct.
It still is to a degree, and we're always like, yeah, but they came into our world, so let's show them our world. Like,
Mhm.
let's not limit that. And I think you have painted an extremely beautiful picture post that sentence of like, I don't think that's true.
No, I really did not want to give. I was just absolutely. First of all, I was absolutely. People will say the most insane things to you when you're pregnant. I don't know
They
why.
will. They will.
I was absolutely shocked and appalled, and I was mad. Right? Like I really hadn't made it like a core mission to be a traveling family. But
I
once
wish you
she
could send
said
this
that,
book to
I'm
that
like,
person. Send this book to them. Just say, look at what I did the last 15 years.
Exactly, right? I'm like, I'm gonna do it because you said I can't. And I've been doing that my whole life. I went to Dartmouth because someone said I couldn't.
Couldn't.
Studied math because someone said
Bravo.
I couldn't. So
Travel. I love that you were starting to say that prior to that, it hadn't really been like your mission to always keep traveling, and no matter what, like
Yeah.
it's almost like it hadn't occurred to you yet that there'd be.
Right.
We process these things as they come upon us, right? So she tells you this, and then you're like, "Let me
No.
see how I can prove you wrong."
exactly. Basically what happened.
As we went through the book, the beginning of each chapter, there's a quote that is
Are those
very cool.
Are those your well? Some of them are some famous people, but are some of them your blog community, or
No,
who are the
no.
quotes?
After writing each chapter and reading through it, I decided, it was actually my husband's idea. He was like, it would be cool if you started with a quote. I just decided to look for a quote that
I
kind of
see.
matched the theme of the
Got it.
chapter.
I
Yeah.
was like, your blog people are amazing. These quotes are
No.
perfect. No. Some of the names I recognized, some I didn't. No, they're very powerful. They're very true.
When through this process did you decide to start the blog, that you wanted to document this?
That actually started when I was pregnant with my second one.
Okay.
So with my first one, with Sunil, I had wanted to go to India during my maternity leave, and I got talked out of it. My mother-in-law said he's too little. My mom said, oh, it's too little. Everyone was like, it's not safe to go to India. I got talked out of it. And so instead, we brought Sunil when they were 9 months old. And while I love my family and I love India, that trip was so hard because at 9 months old, they were eating solids and nursing and on formula, pulling themselves up, crawling everywhere. Like it, that trip was just, trying to keep them alive the entire time. Right. And so when I got pregnant with the second, I said, we're going to India during my maternity leave. I said, this is going to be significantly easier, right? If I'm nursing, this is, we won't have to worry about food. We won't, at 3 months old, which is when we went, Isabella was happily like going with everyone, smiling, laughing, only needed to nurse, was still when you put her down. Like it was the perfect time in my mind to travel. And it was a fantastic trip. But I realized I was taking these kids at 2 and 3 months old to India. And, always everyone was like, why are you traveling? Your kids are so young. They don't remember. And I'm like, yeah, that is true. They don't remember. And so I started writing the blog because I wanted them to remember. I wanted to write down the stories so that way one day they could go back and see all of the things that
I
they
love
had
that.
done. And so I wrote the stories about India, and then I didn't write for almost a year. And then we decided to go to Argentina. So I wrote the stories about Argentina. And it was around then I started noticing that more than just my family and friends were reading the stories. And I didn't want to give it up. And so I just kept writing. It was my creative outlet and release. I work in finance, which I love and I'm very good at, and sometimes doesn't scratch that creative itch, right? And so was able to kind of release it in that way. Um at some point around the pandemic when I switched from corporate to consulting, um I started to actually monetize the blog. And then it shifted from like, this is a funny story that we did to like, top 5 places to go in Tokyo or whatever it is, which, I also enjoyed writing. But I realized I was shifting away from the storytelling. And that was actually kind of what pivoted me towards wanting to write the book and get back to some of that storytelling.
Very cool.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
that.
I love the memory. That just resonates with me though too, because
Yeah.
our daughter again was 7, and we can't wait to see how it's unpacked. Right? Like
Yeah.
we keep being told, "Oh, that's a perfect age. She's gonna remember," and so things start coming out. Like she'll talk to Michelle or me, or say like bring something up just randomly, and like, "Oh, you remember that? Like, oh wow, that's cool." But now we were able to take a video camera and do the whole video thing, so we have all that as well. So we're super excited there.
Exactly.
But I want to know before we let you go.
Can I say one more thing on the shift on the blog?
Oh, please
real quick.
do. Yeah,
I just want to acknowledge one thing about that because I appreciate how you phrase that and that the storytelling and creative part of you then had to come to the crossroads of like, and yes or but to monetize. People want the 5 this that, and we've crossed that bridge as well, and we've danced on both sides.
Resonates with us.
And
Yeah.
and ultimately, it is like, yes, we want to be extremely useful in information that might be practical and helpful, and also do that within this framework of really what we're saying is the core memory, the bonding, the other stuff that you get that isn't the stuff we're able to say the 5 things you can get. It's like I can't put into words what you receive when you embrace this. So I just appreciate that you kind of name that in a really nice way of like, well, hold on a second, what am I doing here? How am I serving? And you just wrote a book instead. Like, okay, let's just write a book.
It is a little
Why
bit
not,
of an
Robin? Let's just write a book.
internal struggle
I love
of
this.
that, right? Is that
It
it is that
is,
you
yes.
want to keep going. So you want to do have that monetization factor, but you want to stay true to yourself and true to the story and do what you want to do. It truly makes you happy. So it really was something, as I mentioned, resonated with us.
definitely.
So thank
Sorry,
you. Yeah,
you
no,
were
no,
saying.
not at all.
I was like, wait, I got to say something else.
No, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because it certainly did affect when she said it. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. I guess kind of, one of my last questions would be is you mentioned, you would sit at Starbucks and you'd write these stories and they bring up emotion and you sit there crying about things. And when people read this book, is there a story or a place that you really want them to read? You can't wait for them to experience this moment with you because it meant so much to your family.
Oh, there's so many. It's a book full. Um,
No, I know. That's why I was
Just read the
curious if
book.
there was even
Yeah.
one that might stand out to you.
I think, okay, so there's two I'm thinking of. One is in Bali, and that was during my 40th birthday trip, but it was also when my dad was fighting cancer. And I actually went on that trip in between his surgery and his radiation treatment. And there is some stories in there about how much we love Bali. And I was constantly thinking about my dad, right? And realizing that my kids were not only seeing that, but also affected and thinking about him too. So I think that was one in terms of like, as much as you think you're hiding your emotions, you're not, right? And also, your kids are learning to appreciate this in the same way. And then I think the other one I was thinking of was during COVID when everything in life changed. And we actually all got COVID while we were traveling. Um, and sort of how we dealt with that situation and came out the other side and the lessons we learned about that. I think those are the two real things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had actually jotted down a final question, which is along the same thread, and it actually bookends well because it's how Kent kind of opened our conversation. I was curious what feeling you want your reader to have once they journey with you through the book, and at the end of the book, what is the feeling that you're hoping you evoke in them?
Positivity, that they can do it, encouragement, I guess, to go out. A little bit of humor and as well, right? That they can laugh at themselves about things that happen too, and it's gonna be okay. I think that's what I want everyone to get out of it. Like just the feeling that yes, I can go out, I can explore, and I can, you know, show my kids these things no matter what our situation is in life.
Beautiful.
It's
Once again, a mic drop.
well said, mic drop. The ingredients of life you just described.
That's all. That's just exactly it.
I'll have one of those, please.
That's the recipe. Stir it up and put it in the oven. We'll see how it comes out.
I'll have that with you anytime.
The book is called Raising World Travelers While Staying Sane. Robin DeGracia is our guest. There's the book right there. I think Michelle just did a mic drop.
Just do a mic
Yes.
drop. Sorry.
No, I don't know what happened
I saw the
there.
book and I was like, yes.
I can't say it enough. Raising World Travelers While Staying Sane. So please, it's on Amazon. It dropped on July the 1st, I believe.
Yep. Yeah.
And could you tell everybody how they can get themselves a copy and how they can follow along with you on all your social channels?
Sure. So yes, Raising World Travelers While Staying Sane is available right now just on Amazon. It's available in paperback and ebook, and for the first 3 months will be available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you're part of the Kindle Unlimited program, you'll be able to read it there too. And so I am hoping to make it available to independent bookstores probably after like 3 to 6 months. And then you can follow me on Around the World with Kids blog. I am most active on Instagram, but I am also on TikTok and Facebook. And then if you're interested in just hearing about the book, I have a raisingworldtravelers.book Instagram account. but all of the fun travel stuff and is in around the world with kids, and raising world travelers is just to get everyone to buy my.
Love it. Please do. Please
Oh, them
do.
all.
And as we kind of wrap up here, to listen to this podcast with Robin, we are on the Frenchitivity YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And Michelle, there's a few things we'd love our listeners to do.
Yes, we would. On Apple Podcasts, if you would follow along, it helps us a lot to share this with everybody else. And we would certainly love a review if you feel so moved to leave one. And also, of course, if you want to follow along our adventures all the time, Frenchitivity.com/compass, and you can get signed up for our newsletter, and we'll send you all the good details of everything we're up to all the time.
Once again, I can't say enough. Raising World Travelers While Staying Sane by Robin DeGracia. She wrote the book, 15 years of experience with 2 kids and a husband that was a champ along the way, as I can only imagine. So Robin, thanks so much for joining us. Best of luck with the book, and we look forward to having you on again and kind of checking in to see how you were doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, Robin.
Bye.
Frenchitivity, Frenchitivity.